Welcome to Pathetic, the podcast, where we come to you each week. My boys Mikey C and Geoff. Mikey, how are you tonight?
I am all kinds of jacked up. This week is one of my favorite weeks of the year. As I know I said that last week, but this is it. This is the week that I've been waiting for. March Madness is here. We're going to get into it a little bit later, but I am all kinds of jacked up. I take off of work for 2 days, and I'm going to be locked in. You might see me on the socials with some of the shenanigans going on during the tournament. But yeah, excited to be here. Geoff, how are we doing today?
Well, we got March Madness. We have baseball starting very, very soon. So there's nothing to complain about. And even people that aren't like the biggest college basketball fans, we're all watching March Madness, right? So everything is great, and let's get rocking and rolling.
Yeah, well, I want to remind everyone, if you've been watching us or listening to us up to this point, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. The best way to build our numbers, get those algorithms going. I have no idea what that means either, the algorithms, whatever it is. But tell people, word of mouth is the best way to advertise this. If this is your first time watching us, really hope you enjoy it. Drop us a line. You can email us at patheticthepodcast@gmail.com. We also are on Twitter, or X, excuse me, I'm sorry. Pathetic the pod, whatever you look for us, you'll find us. Facebook, Pathetic Podcast, and we're also on Instagram. So we're all over the place. What you can do is just check out the show notes. You'll be able to see where we're at. Get on there, and we get a lot of emails. And I'm really surprised at how many emails we get. We get a lot more than I thought. And I meant to read one last week before we even get started, and I didn't. And I was reminded that I needed to get to this one tonight. And we got an email from Jen, okay? And this is exactly what she put in the email. Longtime listener, first-time caller.
So she's a WFAN fan.
She's a WFAN fan. She said, my question is for Mikey C. Okay. As a diehard Jets fan, how does it feel to be married to an Eagles fan who, during the 8 years you've been together, the Eagles have been to 3 Super Bowls and have 2 wins, love the pod, and go Birds? Mikey, what do you have to say about that?
Well, clearly it's me, because before I was dating her and married to her, they made 1 Super Bowl or 2 Super Bowls and lost them both and never got close in the 20 years before we got together. So yeah. I think it's me. That's just my that's just me. I think it's me who's so all the Philadelphia people out there listening to this, you have me to thank for your 2 Super Bowl wins and there, because clearly our teams are not anywhere close. So someone's got to benefit from our misery. So,
Geoff, isn't that crazy that he's married to an Eagles fan? They don't, like, I mean, you should hear me and Jen go at it. It's hysterical. Yeah. And listen, I love Jen so much, but I tell her she's an Eagles loser. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Now, is she a real fan, watching the games, into it, talking a little trash? She's the real deal fan.
Okay. Diehard Eagles fan. Other Philly sports, probably more casual, but yeah, the Birds are her team. I remember 2 years ago we had a bet. It was Jets Eagles when they played, I think 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. It was the loser had to fold the laundry for the rest of the year after the game, and that was in the first quarter. She made this bet, and the Eagles were up at that point. And I said, I'm probably going to be folding the laundry anyway, so I'll just make the bet. And the Jets came back and won.
Yeah.
And needless to say, everyone that I know was texting her pictures of people folding laundry and saying I should change, 2 or 3 times a day just to make sure there's extra laundry in there because of it. So, but Eagles are her team, and, I will say that since we've been together, they've been very successful. So I take full credit for that.
That's not as bad as if it was a Jets Patriot couple or a Cowboy Giants. Then, it's twice a year. You got to play them every single year.
Yep.
So it can get a little ugly, but at least the Jets and the Eagles overall don't really have much to do with each other, but that's hilarious, man. That's awesome. That's a great question too. Keep those coming.
And Geoff, she is really a pretty good crap talker. She's pretty good. Now, she's not as good as we are, but she's good. And she can hang with us for a while going back and forth, but then eventually, of course, we just pound her into submission. But she's very good at it. And honestly, that's probably one of the I love how she gets into that. I love that because and the thing I love about her is the same way. I don't think that she would let anybody else talk crap to me and Mike. You know what I'm saying? She's got our backs for sure. I know that for sure.
Yeah.
And we love it. Jen, thank you so much for that email. But listen, enough with the emails. Get the word out to your friends. Tell you, as Craig Carton says, tell your friends. Tell your friends. But yeah, and everybody's going to find out every single week. Mikey is the most jacked. The most jacked every week.
No matter what week it is.
No matter what week it is, this is the week Mikey is the most jacked. Like you can never ask Mike the review of a movie he goes to see because you don't get an honest review. Mike, everybody's killing this movie. How was it? I got to tell you, one of the best movies I've ever seen. And then I know it's a piece of garbage and I don't go. I wait for it to come out on like video or something. But again, that's what we love about Mike.
You know what that is? That's the characteristic of a positive mindset. So I love it.
That's why we're Jeff fans. That's why we're Jeff fans.
Yeah,
right.
To get through it. So
that's the only way you can get through it.
Exactly. But this is March Madness. Okay, so the brackets are set. We've got the playing games. Mike, give us a little because you're more. I think you're more into the way the brackets are and all than Jeff and I are. We're still rooting for. We've got our favorites. But what do you think about the brackets?
So when I take a look at all of the regions, there's one region that is clearly the easiest out there, and that is the East region with Duke in it. You might as well let them pencil them into the Final Four. There's no one in that group that should scare you if you're a Duke Blue Devil fan. Alabama's hurt. Wisconsin always seems to choke in the tournament. And there's really nobody else there that I would be worried about if I was a Duke fan. You might as well pencil them in and book your tickets to San Antonio now.
What about Cooper Flagg? Is he playing?
I don't think it matters, to be honest with you, because there's no one in there, but he should be playing. I think you could probably let him take the first game off and just play him on Sunday for the second game, and you'll be just fine because there's no one, even either Baylor or Mississippi State, neither of those two teams are going to scare you or in anywhere near the class that Duke is in. So I think that is your easiest bracket. And unfortunately for Jeff, the toughest bracket out there is the West region because Florida is a juggernaut. They are clearly the best team. You have UConn in there, who is two-time defending national champion. You have the 7-10 matchup is Bill Self and Kansas versus Calipari and Arkansas. So you have, and even Texas Tech is a tough game when you get to the Sweet 16, if you get through those first two games if you're St. John. So it's a tough road in that bracket, and you got to travel all the way across the country to San Francisco for the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight. So
that's so
they
crazy.
Really did not give Pitino an easy run at it, but they did give him a very entertaining second matchup against either Bill Self in Kansas or Calipari and him in Providence. In the second round. So curious of your thoughts on St. John's here, Jeff.
Well, that's my alma mater, so I will definitely be rooting for them hard. And what's so exciting about St. John's is you can feel the buzz in New York, right? New York is clearly getting behind them, even if they're not big St. John's fans. I think it's been like 25 years since they won the Big East tournament, right? And more importantly than even winning a tournament, it's been a long time since they've been good, right? Or at least a threat to where you can say, you know what, this could be an exciting run. And I feel like there's a real momentum push behind the Red Storm right now. And listen, I think they could do some damage. I really do. And it's not like I'm watching St. John's or even college on a weekly or daily basis. So there's a lot that I don't know. But one thing I do know is that St. John's defense is legit. They have a really good defense. Their shooting, their free throws aren't amazing, which could ultimately be the kryptonite to their demise if they lose. But regardless of what happens, I mean, what a turnaround from this team over the past couple of decades. And you know what it is, guys? It's really a perfect example of getting the right coach and changing the entire culture, right? And you guys know John Minko, right? The guy from
he's the play-by-play guy.
Dude, he's basically the Pope of St. John's basketball, right? And he came out and talked about the way Pitino coaches, the discipline, the focus, the attention to the detail. And he focuses on like literally every single possession until the end, no matter what the score is. And if you turn the clock back to the last game against Marquette. It was a tie. It was a tie game. There was 3 seconds left in overtime. Okay, and St. John's misses a 3-pointer. So you would think, all right, Marquette gets the ball, they get the rebound. 2 seconds left in the game. You would think St. John's is just going to be like, all right, we'll settle for double overtime. Instead, they poke the ball out, get a steal, and win the game. That's coaching, right? And the good thing about these young kids is that it's different than the pros because they're so, they're willing to listen a lot more than someone getting paid, $50 million a year. So I think Pitino has been an absolute staple to the St. John's turnaround, and we'll see where it goes. But the fact that they got this far and doing what they're doing, it's been amazing to watch.
Well, Well, go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think you're at least gonna win one, probably 2 games at the minimum. Once you get to San Francisco, you might have some problems, but the one thing that you have to be concerned about is the free throw shooting for St. John's.
Yeah.
They don't shoot free throws well, and in March, there's 3 things that will kill you. If you can't shoot free throws, if you are completely outclassed from 3, which they certainly can be, if a team gets hot on them, it's hard for them to match that. And making layups. Now, layups, I don't think they have any problems with, but the threes and the free throws could certainly come and bite you if there's a close game. Now, do I think the first 2 games are going to be close? Probably not. But once you start getting through to the tougher teams, you're going to have a hard time with those 2 things because ultimately those games are going to come down to those fundamental things to get done.
Yeah. I think if St. John's can win a few rounds and just really show that they're back, right? And this is an exciting era or the beginning of an era. I know it's year 2 for Pitino, but it's an exciting beginning of an era for this organization or this school. That's good enough for me. And I don't want to aim low. I'm still hoping they take it to the end. And Uncle Ted, you picked them to win the whole thing, right? You said that's
one of my brackets. I actually only have 2 brackets. One I haven't filled out completely yet, but on the other one, I picked St. John's to go the whole way. And I mean, listen, is some of that a little bit of heart? Yeah, absolutely. But listen, when I was younger, I think it was 1984, I traveled to Landover. What is it? Not in Washington. It's in Maryland, Landover, Maryland. And I saw St. John's with Walter Berry and Chris Mullen play against Georgetown with Alonzo Mourning, Patrick Ewing, and that crew. And I got to tell you, that might have been the height of college basketball. That game was unbelievable. And back then, I know you guys weren't alive then, but that college basketball, that was must see all the time. I never missed a college basketball game during the season, on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon. I've kind of lost a little bit of it since then. but like Mike said, everybody watches the tournament because everybody's got a vested interest in it. But I am really excited to see St. John's. I really am excited because I think I agree with you, Geoff. The Patino factor is huge because if you remember, they went into a little bit of a struggle period, and Patino, I guess his halftime speech, where he basically ripped them apart. You guys think you're tough. Did you guys forget where you came from all of a sudden?
Yep.
Because I'll tell you this, there are great players all across this country, but there is no better pocket of basketball players than the New York, New Jersey region. Because not only are those guys great athletes, but they are tough as nails.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not in this where after the game they're going and they're hanging out at the country club with mommy and daddy, doing any of that stuff. These are urban kids, and God bless them. They fight like, their lives depend on it. And unfortunately for them, some of them it does. For them to do what they have to do and get out. And I'm all in on St. John's. I think it's great for the city.
It is.
It really is. And as much as I really like Danny Hurley, he's done so many dumb things this year. I'm praying for him to get bounced in the first round so that he can start a fight with a reporter asking a crazy question. I can't wait for that. But yeah, we'll definitely talk about this a little more because the next time we record, it'll be after the first two games. So that'll be interesting. We'll be able to touch on that.
And also, I will be probably jumping on Instagram on Thursday and Friday from the casino because I do spend those 2 days locked in the sports book, just hanging out with the guys. I have a buddy who's driving up from South Carolina who comes up every year. We spend the 2 days in the casino, in the sports book, watching games, drinking beers, just having a good time. So shout out to Michael Finnegan. I'm sure he's probably listening on his drive up to this. Hopefully we get some good wins, and stay tuned for the mushes at the end. You might have a surprise in there as well.
I don't want to sound like a braggart, but my alma mater made the Elite Eight in 2022, so that was pretty exciting. St. Peter's Peacocks, go Cox,
go Cox.
Yep. Gamecocks made it Final Four in 2017, so I was at the first two games of that run. So
and Jersey got behind St. Peter's too.
Oh,
Jersey was all behind them, man. Even there are people, Eli Manning, who didn't even know St. Peter's existed up until they made the tournament. But that's cool, man. Like I don't look at it as like being a fake fan. You're just supporting. No. You're supporting the region. You're supporting your area. So
exactly.
It's nothing but good things out of that.
I always say, go Cox. So, a couple of things going on in the NFL. Mike, I think the two of us might be smiling a little inside when we look at the NFL, and not that we're smiling against you, Geoff.
You could say it.
But when everybody was all in on Aaron Rodgers, and yeah, it wasn't his fault, and it wasn't his fault last year, and he does so many things well. This is why he's hated, because he can't just say, I'm going to play for Pittsburgh or I'm going to play for the Giants. He's got to make sure that he makes his decision when there's no NCAA games going on, when hockey's on the back burner, when nobody's talking about the Knicks, because he wants the stage. And if I'm the Giants, I'll tell you right now, and Mike, I loved this guy, Jameis Winston.
Ooh.
Listen, he may throw up 35 touchdowns, and he will throw 25 picks.
Ugh.
But he's going to have 400-yard games. He's going to be thanking God. It's going to be awesome.
All right, so I've had about enough of Aaron Rodgers. I'm going to be honest, and I want him. I still want him to this day, but I can't do it anymore. Like it's enough's enough. Like crap or get off the pot. I mean, really, like enough. We're sitting here every week waiting, and it's not just us, by the way. It's the Steelers. Now the Vikings came out of nowhere. So I've had enough, to be honest. But look, a few weeks ago, my prediction was he was going to sign with the Giants. I truly believe that. But that was also before the Steelers and the Vikings threw their hat in the ring, right? That to me changes everything. And if you're Rodgers and you have all the money you need times 10, right? He never had a wife or kids, so he pocketed every dollar he had. And he clearly wants to end his career with winning. Like that's number one for him. The Giants are now the redheaded stepchild of this Rodgers triangle of teams who want him, right? So unless the money is a motivating factor for him, the Giants are probably going to end up on the short end here, which brings me to my next point of who I think they should get, or who I think is next. And I am leaning towards it now. I'm being sold on it. It's probably going to be Russell Wilson. And he wasn't my first, second, third, or fourth choice initially. And initially is the key word there. But just like in life, right? When circumstances change, your outlook changes. And the more I think about the potential Russell Wilson scenario, it's not that significant of a downgrade from Aaron Rodgers, right? Even if it's a downgrade at all, it's very minor, right? He had single-digit interceptions the last 2 years. I think he had 25 or 26 touchdowns his last year in Denver. And he played 11 games last year, but was on pace to be in the mid to high 20s in touchdowns. The guy can still play, right? Now, if Rodgers goes to Pittsburgh, and let's say Wilson goes to Minnesota, for example, the Giants are screwed. They're screwed. They have nowhere to go because Uncle said, I love you, but I completely disagree with Jameis. I want nothing to do with him.
Now,
so if the Giants lose out on these two guys, enjoy Joe Flacco, right? Enjoy Jameis Winston. And at this point, guys, to be honest, like I wouldn't be mad if the Giants took the hardball approach with Aaron Rodgers right now and just said, listen, man, time to make a decision. Here is the max amount of money we are going to give you. Find out what that number is from John Mara and put a deadline on it, right? And if that deadline passes, I'll bring in Wilson. I think Wilson is better than Jameis Winston. I think we'd all agree there. And I want to win some games. I want to win. Right, and Wilson's a good bridge, kind of like Rodgers was. So, again, I don't want to say all in on Wilson because there's a few things I don't like about him. But if that happened, I'd be perfectly okay with it.
Now, the one thing I will say in Jameis Winston's defense, and he does make a lot of mistakes, but if you look at the first season with Daniel Jones, when he started making some of those mistakes and Dable got in his face and said, you're not going to make those mistakes. You're going to correct them. And all of a sudden, Daniel Jones had his fantastic career and, the rest is history, as they say. Could you see that maybe he could do that with Jameis and say, you have all this talent. You can throw the ball all over the place. You just got to cut down on the mistakes. And if maybe Dable is the guy who can do that for him, I mean, that is an option, I think, if you end up losing out on Wilson and losing out on Rodgers. If Rodgers goes to Minnesota and completes the Brett Favre loop and Wilson goes back to Pittsburgh, you got to go with Jameis at that point.
I would say that's probably option number 3 because there's no one else available, right? Who's better than Jameis outside of Rodgers and Wilson? So if it came down to it and we had to do it, would I be pissed? I wouldn't be happy, but it's not the end of the world. I don't want Joe Flacco. I heard that name rumbling, and I know some Giant fans. I'm going to shout him out. Paul, one of my buddies, wants Joe Flacco. He watched too much 2011 film. Like this guy, I'm sorry, man. Like Joe Flacco, no thanks. But to your point, Mike, it's not crazy what you said. I don't even fully disagree with it. The only thing I will say is Daniel Jones was a lot fresher as a player when Dable came in than Jameis Winston was. So it's going to be a lot more difficult to, shake the interception, mistake-prone cobwebs off of someone like Winston than it was Jones. Can he do it? Sure. So I want Wilson at this point. Rodgers 1, Wilson 2, and I guess Winston 3. But again, like I said previously, I think it's time the Giants make a move. They have to. And I would talk to Rodgers, give him a deadline. If that doesn't work out, give him a 24-hour deadline. I would call Russell Wilson back in and get that deal done.
Because can you send, when he's in the darkness, can you send an email? I don't know if he's.
Oh, jeez. Is he doing that again? If he does that crap,
I don't know.
gone.
He actually, the last time I saw anything about him, he was walking on the beach in Malibu with a Native American blanket over him, and he was walking like a homeless person.
Yeah, he's bizarre.
What is going on here? Well, Mike, we talked about this off show about the Jets. The moves they're making, listen, they're not earth-shattering. They're buying low and looking for high return. But the key is it's younger guys. You know, it's much younger guys. I mean, I love the Justin Fields signing. We talked about that. The other two signings I really like a lot is the guy Smart from the tight end that we picked up. Is it Street Smart? I don't know.
No, probably not.
I know. I'm just saying. And the wide receiver that we got from the Rams. You know, both younger on the younger side. Because I still think we're going to pick a tight end, probably like Tyler Warren in the first round. But at least the Justin Wilson thing makes it so we don't have to pick a quarterback. We can worry about quarterback next year if we even have to worry about it, which I'm hoping that happens. But Mike, I know you had a favorite, one of your signings. Which one was that?
I mean, my guy who I think is a great signing, especially with the guys that we've lost so far this year, is picking up Andre Sisco from the Jaguars. I didn't realize it until after he signed. He was actually a Jet season ticket holder, or his family was, in Section 213, and now he's playing for the Jets. So, you know, I want guys like that who are excited to be here, who want to be here, are not just taking us for the money, who want to come in and make the Jets a great team again. So that's what I'm hoping for with him. And putting him on the other side of Sauce, I think, is great. You have two nice young corners. The only concern I have now is all of these corners are getting paid. You saw somebody get $30 million as a corner today. Yeah. So I feel like Sauce is going to want to beat that at some point. So that's eventually going to come down. Hopefully not this year. Hopefully it's in the offseason. You're dealing with that, and he doesn't just all of a sudden pull up the training camp and say, I deserve to be the highest paid corner in the league, and I'm not playing until I get a $35 million contract from the Jets, and we have another Hassan Reddick situation, which I don't want.
Book it. Geoff, what about you with your signings? What did you like?
Well, I like what they're doing with the defense. They signed a bunch of defensive backs. Today was a bad day, though. They lost Azeez Ojulari to the Eagles, which I mean, they gave him 1 year and $4 million. Like, why couldn't the Giants match that or beat it by a couple million? That was a weird one. But I like what they're doing. They're stacking up the defense. They're getting defensive backs, and I think they're going to go defense in the draft too. After they draft the quarterback, which I think they will in round one. But overall, I like what they're doing. But, you know, it's kind of like with the Jets, right? The proof is in the pudding. It's got to work out. And if you're a Jets fan, I mean, you should be at least excited that there's a plan. There's people running the show that know what the heck they're doing. And even if you disagree with some of the moves and you're not going to agree with everything, but at least they're not just throwing money at people and just saying, okay, let's get all the talent in the world. No coach. Let's leave the coach away, but we'll just get all the talent. The Jets have people in the room now that actually have a specific game plan on how they want to build this team. And I feel like when you're a new regime, a new administration, that's step number one. What's the blueprint of what you want the team to look like? And I feel like Glenn and what's his name, GM, Muji. I feel like they've presented that blueprint, and more importantly, implementing what they want to do. So I'm actually, again, let's see what it's going to be next year. You know, or this year, come August, September. But I like the direction so far of what the Jets are doing. Yeah,
but I'm in agreement with that. But we'll see. Again, Mike and I, we know the Jets are the champions of the offseason. So,
well, this has been a good offseason.
Hang the banner.
Yeah. We had a discussion about this because last week, if you remember, we did our top 5 helmet logos, which everybody I talked to loved that segment because
I'm more. By the way, I'm more excited about this. I think. By the way, this is fantastic. I can't wait.
What we're gonna do now for you is everybody has not their favorite sport, but their favorite sporting event, and we would love for you to email us or go on X or Instagram or Facebook and let us know what your top 3 favorite sporting events are, the ones that you really get jacked up on. Mike has 98 of them that he gets jacked up on, but we're going to narrow him down to 3. Geoff, why don't you give us your top 3 sporting events?
So it's funny because last week when we were discussing, what should we do for the next show, this came up right away, and Mike brought the very good idea up of making this top 3 instead of top 5. Let's make the 3 best. Forget 5. Let's get the 3 top. And it was hard because I like a lot of sporting events throughout the year. But for me, my number 3 is the Masters. It's essentially the Super Bowl of golf, right? And I don't think there's a lot of sports out there that exemplify pressure like golf does, right? Just the silence of the game, the crowd right next to you, you're by yourself outside of your caddy. And winning the Masters, if you think about it, and I know you guys are big golf guys, and I know the listeners probably are too, it's really equivalent to a quarterback getting a Super Bowl ring. I mean, It is by far the greatest honor in golf. So for me, the Masters comes in at number 3. Number 2, you guys know I have to throw a little UFC in the mix. International Fight Week. And I know some people don't know what that is. So International Fight Week is every summer. And what they essentially do is they stack the entire card from top to bottom with the best fighters in the UFC, where basically every fight on the card is main event worthy. Like it could be a pay-per-view main event. And the entire week they have fighters do events, Q&As, and kind of like the Masters for golf, International Fight Week is basically the Super Bowl for the UFC. So that's my number 2. And then finally, to me, this was a layup. And I think I'm going to be probably 50-50 on this with people listening. I think you might think I'm nuts, and some people agree. Week 1 of the NFL season, right? There's nothing like it. It's funny. It doesn't matter that there's nothing on the line because it's just a reality check that football is back and the stress begins, right?
Yeah.
And my favorite part about week 1 is the overreactions from every single fan, including me. I'm not throwing, stones at a glass house. We all overreact after week 1, and hearing the complaints, the yelling and the screaming, it's great. But it's just that reminder that the NFL is back and the fall's coming. So my number 1 is week 1 of the NFL season.
Now, Geoff, is it true that International Fight Week, the idea actually came from people watching the news of every weekend in Detroit?
Every weekend in Detroit? I'll tell you what it came from, actually. I'll tell you what it really did come from. It came from the fact that the UFC is so diverse in terms of countries, right? Like it's really a worldwide sport. So people from all across the world come to Vegas that week, and it's for the whole week. It's not just a Friday, Saturday thing. It's Monday through Saturday, and they stack the cards with a lot of international fighters too. So yeah, it's great, man. It's one of the best events, and can't wait to watch it coming up in July.
Mikey, I know this is not easy for you because of all the ones you like. But Mikey, what including skee ball at the FERC. But Mike, what's your top 3 sporting events?
Before you start, Mike, real quick, we all know Mike was all kinds of jacked up for this top 3. He was ready to.
I had about 75 that I could have done that I was all ready to go for. That I'm really excited about. But I narrowed it down to 3, and I did have to put an honorable mention as a 4th because I just couldn't stop at 3. So here we go. So, and you're going to catch a theme to a lot of these right away. Number 3 is the Kentucky Derby. I love this event so much. I get dressed up in a seersucker suit for the Friday before the Kentucky Derby. I come into work with my seersucker suit on. I make mint juleps every single year. I couldn't get enough. It's a bucket list item for me to get there at some point, to go to the Kentucky Derby. I love horse racing. I love to just sit there and watch all the card all the way through the day. One of my favorite days of the year is Kentucky Derby Day. Number 2 is opening day of baseball. Coming up very soon, next week, next Thursday, I will be at Yankee Stadium, ready to go. I'll be at stands at about 10:30 in the morning, and the game doesn't start till 3 o'clock. So ready to go there, or really any baseball game where they line up on the baselines. Like if the first game of a playoff series where they line up the different teams, they go through the whole roster and they line up along the baselines. Anytime I see that, I get very excited because it's just such a cool look. You take a picture, you save it for forever, and it's just a fun day at the ballpark. But number 1 is what's happening on starting on Thursday is March Madness. These 2 days of the year, I can't get enough. I will be glued to the television for 12 hours a day for 4 straight days this week, then another 8 hours the following week, and then the final 4. And by that point, I'm just a zombie at that point. But I just love watching all of the games, taking the remote control, flipping between them. I have all the channels memorized. I don't even know what True TV is, but somehow I know what channel it is because I have to flick back and forth to watch the games on it. But these are my 2 favorite days of the year. It is the Thursday and Friday of March Madness. I just can't even focus on work. I take the 2 days off. For all the guys out there who decide that this is the day to get their vasectomies, just take the days off. You don't need to go to that extreme to go watch the basketball games. I'm sorry, you just don't. And then my honorable mention is the Daytona 500. NASCAR. I do enjoy NASCAR. My parents live about 10 minutes from the Daytona Speedway. The fun thing about NASCAR is they have a re-entry policy. So if you run out of beer, you could bring in a cooler full of beer. If you run out of beer, you could go out of the stadium, go to your car, refill your cooler, and come right back into the stadium right after that. So It is a fun afternoon at the stadium for sure.
I live in the South, in the Carolinas, in North Carolina, and you're right, Mike. It's you know what it is? NASCAR is not only a sporting event, it's a hangout. It really is. It's a huge event that is just you would think the Super Bowl is in town the way that like when the NASCAR events come down here, it's unbelievable. So I could definitely see that.
Well, there is a strip club in Pennsylvania that allows you to leave because they don't serve alcohol, and you can go out, get more beer, put it in your cooler, and bring it in. So I guess they're kind of like the Daytona 500 of strip clubs, is what I'm saying. My top 3, okay? Number 3 would be the NFL draft. I love the NFL draft. I mean, to me, I sit there like I'm really making the picks. I have my papers. I've made my fake phony mocks, and I'm looking to see how, I'm looking for trades. But that to me is, and a few years ago when the Jets had, what was it, like 3 picks in the first round, and they traded up to get back into the first round to get, I think it was Jermaine Johnson, who, by the way, tweeted today. He says, "Your boy ready." So he should be back on the field pretty soon. But the NFL draft, by far, is my number 1. I've been to the NBA draft the year the Nets drafted Kenny Anderson, which was pretty awesome. But the NFL draft is by far, one of my favorites. Number 3. Number 2, same as Mike. MLB opening for New York. I know tomorrow we're filming this on a Monday night. On Tuesday morning, we're going to have, I think the Cubs and the Dodgers are opening up in Japan or wherever the heck they are. But for the Mets and the Yankees, to me, it's just a great day. It really is. It's it just shows you that, especially up here in the Northeast, spring is here, summer's right around the corner, and baseball's back. And then we're all sick of it by the following Monday, but we're all happy that first day. But number one, far and away, Geoff, I'm with you on this one. Weekend one of the NFL. I mean, there to me, it starts on that Thursday night when they start the first game, and it's just, I mean, even when your team stinks, you can watch any NFL game, even when your team stinks. The only other sport that I find that with is hockey. I can watch any hockey game, but I certainly can watch any football game. But week one is really special, and you're right. The overreactions. I remember one year the Jets beat Buffalo week one. It was probably about 20 years ago. And I remember just running up and down the street to my friends who were Jet haters, and I was ringing their doorbells just, ah! And I think they finished 2-14 or something that year. But yeah, so that's my picks. NFL draft is 3, MLB is 2, and the NFL week 1 is my number 1.
There's nothing better than being 1-0. I will say that. When you're
Undefeated.
1-0, you feel like you're going to win every single game the entire year. And the opposite is also true. When you go 0-1, you think we're never going to win it. You have to win week 2, otherwise the season's over. So,
I'm going to give you guys a tease. When we get the schedules and they come out and we do the win-loss-win, you're going to not want to miss that show, because Mikey is some sort of special on that one. So that's going to be interesting.
I'll give him a run for his money. Trust me. I told you, I had the Giants going undefeated like 3 years. The year after they made the playoffs, I'm like, they're not going to lose a game. All 17 weeks, and they lost every game almost. I think they won like 5 games that year. So.
Well, before we get to Geoff's UFC picks and Mikey Mush's pathetic picks, I want to remind everybody that those picks are actually sponsored. Our sponsor is jjcomedy.com, okay? And that's the comedy shop. And they have shows throughout Pennsylvania, down in the Carolinas, especially the Myrtle Beach area. And they're also one of those companies that when you're looking to raise funds for anything, for a Catholic school, baseball team, uniforms for a soccer team, you don't want to have your kid outside 7-Eleven shaking a can when it's rainy and cold. Let them set up a comedy show. You'll make a lot of money, and it's a fun way of doing it. Some upcoming shows that are happening for JJ Comedy at the Newtown Theater in Newtown, PA, March 23rd. Aunt Mary Pat. Now, very big in that area, very localized, but very, very funny. You will really like that. If you're in New Jersey, Paisanos in Rutherford, New Jersey, March 27th, Aaron Berg. The Queen Street Playhouse in Charleston, South Carolina on March 29th, Shelley Belly and Michelle Ryder. Dreamers in Monk's Corner, South Carolina, March 31st, Carrie Caravas. In Well Crafted in Lansdale, Pennsylvania. It's a craft brewery. April 3rd, Chris Roche. And the Wonders Theater in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I perform there. It's a tremendous theater. Great owner. Beautiful place. May 11th, Shelley Belly and Michelle Ryder will also be there that day. So if you need tickets for all shows and information, go to jjcomedy.com for all your comedy needs. Now, Geoff, what happened last week with your very quickly with your UFC picks?
All right, boys. So we almost had it. Waldo Cortez Acosta beat Ryan Spann. Alexander Hernandez beat Kurt Hollabaugh. And those are my two of my 3 in my parlay. And Marvin Vettori lost a really close decision to Roman Dolidze. So we almost had it, boys, but we'll get it back this week, hopefully.
All right. Well, then, with that being said, it's time for Geoff's UFC picks.
All right, guys. So we're going to do the same thing as last week, and we'll do it every week. 3-legged parlay. We're going to start with Gunnar Nelson, who's minus 135 over Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland is just too one-dimensional. He's a little bit of a goofball when he fights, joking around, and lost 4 of his last 5 fights. So give me Gunnar Nelson over Kevin Holland. Second fight, we're going to do Carlos Ulberg, who's minus 225 over Jan Blachowicz. Carlos is on a 7-fight win streak, and Blachowicz is, I think he's 41 or 42 years old. He's been around the block, and in the fight game, you can only go around the block so many times till the car breaks down. So I got Ulberg over Blachowicz. And then finally, we're going to do the main event. We are going to do Sean Brady, who's minus 148 over Leon Edwards. This was a really tough one, guys. And Leon was recently champion, just lost the belt in his last fight. And when champions lose the belt, it's so tough to get it back. You know, not only is it deflating, but I feel like there's a mental part where you already reached the top, you achieved the goal. So to get that hunger back to become champion dies down a little bit. So I'm not going to go with the former champ. I'm going to go with the up-and-comer, Sean Brady, minus 148 over Leon Edwards.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Guys, I'm telling you, you stick with Geoff on these, you're going to get a lot of Cheez-It goldfish. It's and if you're a listener, you know what I'm talking about when I say that.
Yes.
Now, we're going to go to Mikey's Mush's picks, but before we do that, Mikey, could you give us an update on what happened last week with your picks?
So, by the time when I gave this pick, the line for this game was minus 5.5 for the Greater Western Sydney Giants.
Now, what sport was that? We all should know that, of course, but what sport was that?
Aussie rules football.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So by the time this episode actually came out and aired, the line was down to minus 2.5 for the Giants. So a lot of money on the Melbourne Demons came in late. But the Giants ended up with a strong fourth quarter, outscoring them 22-8, and won the game 77-74. So they did cover that 2.5-point spread that it closed at. So I'm going to count that as a win. I don't know about you guys, but I'm counting that as a
I
W.
would too.
So
Nice.
we are.
And you didn't have any bonus
ladies and
picks. That was the only pick, right? No, was that the only pick you had last week?
And the bonus pick was the Manhattan Jaspers got crushed by Iona, unfortunately. But Iona got crushed in the championship game. So
he tried so hard for us to maybe not bring that up, but yeah. All right, so now, without further ado, Mike, let's have the Mikey Mush pathetic picks.
All right, so we're going to go over the twofer for the people today. We're going to go all across the pond to England, the Premier Dart League. Now, if your bracket is already busted at this point, these games are going off at Thursday at 3:15 and 3:45. So chances are your bracket's probably busted at that point. So if you want to try to get something else going on, we have the Premier Dart League. So I have 2 picks for you from there. If you have a chance, go online and look up the Premier Dart League entrances that these guys come into the stadium to. It will get you all kinds of jacked up. I know I say that a lot, but it's almost like wrestling, the amount of theatrical stuff that goes on when these guys come into the room. They have great walk-up music. It's like they're going into a fight, but they're going to throw darts. So the first one is Stephen Bunting. He is minus 1.5 games. I will take him Thursday at 3:15, and then I will take as well at 3:45 Michael Van Gerwen plus 1.5 games versus Luke Humphreys at 3:45 p.m. So have fun with those two. As my bonus pick, and anyone who knows me knows this, take every single over in the point totals for the March Madness games. I love to watch points. I'm rooting for points. Even if my bracket gets busted, if everyone's scoring points, I am happy because I like high-scoring games. So overs all over the place. Life is too short to bet the under. So take the overs and take your Premier Dart League parlay and have a great Thursday. watching the games.
Guys, this was a lot of fun. I hope you had as much fun doing this as I did, and hopefully our fans also enjoy it. So we'll be back next week. I'll talk to you guys during the week as we look at some of those picks that Mikey and Geoff made, and we can talk about them offline before we come back to you. But guys, thanks so much. Don't forget to hit us up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Send us an email. Thank you so much for your support. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Like
Take care.
and subscribe on YouTube as well.
Yes. Oh, yes. Like and subscribe. What am I doing? Thank you, Mikey. Thank you. Take care, guys.
Have a good one, guys.
Bye-bye.